What if I told you that a millionaire CEO walked away from everything he built, moved to a small town, and started over with almost nothing just to prove that anyone can make it in business? This isn't some fairy tale. This is the story of how one man turned a simple bag of flour into a thriving empire, and the lessons he learned could change your life forever. You see, most people have dreams of starting their own business, but fear keeps them paralyzed. They tell themselves they don't have enough capital, they lack experience, or they think they can't compete with the big players. But here's what they don't realize. The biggest businesses in America didn't start in boardrooms with million-dollar budgets. They started in garages, in basements, in small towns where someone had the guts to take that first step. And that's exactly what happened when Robert Williams decided to test himself one more time. Robert Williams had spent 30 years climbing the corporate ladder. He'd run Fortune 500 companies, closed multi-million-dollar deals, and built an empire that most people only dream about. But as he hit his 60s, he made a decision that shocked everyone around him. He handed the reins over to his sons and moved to a quiet rural town in the Midwest, far from the skyscrapers and boardrooms he'd called home for decades. Most people thought he was retiring, ready to play golf and enjoy his golden years. But Robert? He couldn't turn off that entrepreneurial fire burning inside him. Every morning, he'd walk through the town's main street, watching the local shop owners opening their doors, setting up their stands at the farmer's market, hustling to make ends meet. And something inside him stirred. He missed the game. He missed the challenge. But more than that, he started asking himself a question that would change everything. If I lost it all tomorrow and had to start from scratch, could I still make it? Could I build something meaningful without my network, without my reputation, without my resources? One Saturday morning at the local farmer's market, Robert stopped at a small stand run by a guy named Dave Martinez. Dave was selling these incredible homemade tortilla chips, seasoned with spices that reminded Robert of authentic Southwest cooking. Robert bought a bag, and after the first bite, he was hooked. These weren't your average store-bought chips. These were special. He struck up a conversation with Dave, complimenting the product, asking about the business. Dave lit up talking about it. He explained how he'd been making these chips in his kitchen for almost 10 years, selling them at the farmer's market and to a few local stores. But here's the thing, Dave said with frustration in his voice. He couldn't seem to grow beyond his small circle of loyal customers. The chips were packaged in basic Ziploc bags with a homemade label, and while the taste was unbeatable, the presentation screamed amateur hour. Dave had dreams of getting into bigger stores, maybe even regional chains, but he didn't know where to start. He didn't have money for fancy packaging or marketing, and honestly, he didn't even know if it was possible for a guy like him. Robert looked at those simple Ziploc bags and saw something Dave couldn't see. Untapped potential. A great product trapped in mediocre packaging. A hard-working entrepreneur who just needed the right knowledge to break through. And that's when Robert decided to conduct an experiment. He wanted to prove to himself and to everyone watching that success wasn't about how much money you started with. It was about having the right strategy, the right knowledge, and the willingness to learn from every mistake. Over the next few weeks, Robert became a student again. He walked through the town, talking to small business owners, listening to their struggles, understanding their needs. He noticed something interesting. Almost every bakery, every restaurant, every food stand needed one thing in bulk: flour, high-quality flour. But they were all buying it at marked-up prices from distributors who were taking a huge cut. Robert's business instincts kicked in. What if he could source flour directly, package it properly, brand it with a story that connected to the local community, and sell it at a fair price that still allowed for profit? It was simple, almost too simple. But the best businesses often are. Now here's where Robert did something most millionaires would never do. Instead of throwing money at the problem and building a massive operation right away, he deliberately started with almost nothing. He wanted to feel what Dave felt. He wanted to experience the rejections, the uncertainty, the grind of starting from zero. He put together a small batch of flour, packaged it in decent bags with a simple but clean label, and started making cold calls to local businesses. And guess what happened? He got rejected. A lot. Store owners told him they already had suppliers. Restaurants said they weren't interested in changing what worked. Some people didn't even give him the time of day. But instead of getting discouraged, Robert saw each rejection as data. Why didn't they buy? What objections did they have? What would it take to change their minds? He studied his competitors, figured out what they were doing right and where they were dropping the ball. And slowly, piece by piece, he refined his approach. After months of testing and tweaking, Robert created something special. He sourced premium local flour from family farms in the region, mixed in specialty blends for different baking needs, designed packaging that told the story of American heartland farming, and priced it competitively. But here's the genius move. He didn't just build a business for himself. He created a partnership program where people like Dave, people with hustle but limited capital, could become distributors. They'd buy the flour at wholesale, sell it with a markup, and build their own income streams. Suddenly, Robert wasn't just selling flour. He was building a network. His product started flying off the shelves. Local bakeries loved the quality and the price point. The storytelling on the packaging resonated with customers who wanted to support local businesses. And his distribution partners were making real money, some of them turning it into full-time income. Within 2 years, what started as a test, an experiment to see if success was still possible from ground zero, turned into a multi-million-dollar operation spanning 3 states. Robert proved what he set out to prove. You don't need a fancy MBA or a trust fund to build something meaningful. You need the right knowledge, the willingness to listen and learn, the courage to start small and test your ideas, and the persistence to keep going when people tell you no. So here's what you need to take away from this. If you're sitting there with a business idea but you're scared to start, remember Robert's story. Start small. Test your concept. Listen to your customers. Learn from every rejection. Find a real problem and solve it simply. And most importantly, take that first step. Because the difference between dreamers and doers isn't talent or money. It's action. If this story inspired you to finally start that business you've been thinking about, hit that like button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your journey starts now.